Welcome, welcome. I'm Marcy Billen. I'm a resident here in Norman, Oklahoma, and this is our weekly show, and I am your guide for all things real estate adjacent. So, before we get started, be sure to hit that like button, or of course, give us a follow wherever you're listening. This and if only if this information is helpful to you. I really appreciate you guys joining me every single week. You are also, of course, welcome to join our newsletter list. So I put out 2 newsletters per month. This is all sorts of things with like my YouTube videos, but also different events that are happening in Oklahoma, different home maintenance projects you can be working on in different seasons. All of that sort of stuff is going to be in the newsletter. And I think they're pretty good, but that's my opinion. And, we write them. So that's how it is. So, as you may have guessed, I am a real estate agent here in the Oklahoma City metro. So, in this episode, I wanted to talk about home prices here in the metro. We have finished up Q1, otherwise known as quarter one. So, January, February, and March. Of course, taxes. This is tax season. So, that's about to come up as well. So, in this episode, I want to talk about home prices in the metro, but also other things that are affecting home prices here in the metro or could affect them. So, since I live in Norman, I do tend to focus on Norman. So, let's jump into the first topic. And this is an exciting one for me, one I've been looking forward to for quite some time. So, here it is. Oh, got a little nose itch today. Oh, first, I don't have whiskey today. I know that's what I normally drink when I'm on. I ran out, which is a terrible sounding problem, but I did. And so I have this full of water, nothing else, but this is my Simple Modern cup. Did you know that the Simple Modern is actually an Oklahoma-based company? So that's cool. And I really like those versus a Stanley. So I don't know how you feel about that, but let me check something really quick for you guys. Because HDMI Pro, let me check my audio. Okay, good. Nice. All right, be sure to leave comments whenever you have something to say. I always want to hear your questions, etc. So let me go over here to my banner and put that up for you. So make sure you put your questions down in the chat so I know what you are wondering about. So the first thing I want to talk about, I didn't put this in the title, and I'm going to be talking about this. I have one video planned and then a live based solely on this. And this just happens to be the fact that now, very soon, but now it was voted on last week. Norman residents can build tiny houses next to their homes. This is something as a real estate agent that I've run into so much for my clients. They're always asking about it. A multi-generational living, first of all, it's not just multi-generational living, but it does solve a big problem with living problem. That's a weird way to put it. An issue, a circumstance. There we go. A circumstance about living with your family. Sometimes, it's hard to live with family, but that's where something like a tiny house comes into play. So this is on KOCO. I haven't seen anything in the Norman transcript yet. If you guys don't know how I feel about the Norman transcript, then, it's not my favorite news source of late. But I do have an entire video about this plan. But here's kind of the overall picture of what we're looking at for these tiny homes. So City Council passed this. They voted on this last week. Tiny homes are also called accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs or tiny homes. You can call them a mother-in-law suite, although that's not really like a mother-in-law suite's different. It's like an extra primary suite in your house. This is an ADU. And if you go look on YouTube for ADUs, you're going to find stuff about this everywhere. And Norman is the first city in Oklahoma to approve the construction of ADUs in the entire city. And a lot of other cities are raising their hands and saying, "Hey, we want to do that too. We also want to have ADUs available." So why? Why would we want to do this, and how will this affect home pricing? So we want to do this to increase affordable housing. Now, I did an entire video about this. I think it was a live, but affordable housing, like what is that? Affordable housing means that you're spending around 30% of your monthly income on your housing. Oh, guys, my nose itches today. Goodness. 30% of your monthly income on your housing. And we all know that the world is just a little bit more expensive than it used to be. So this is one way that we can do this is by allowing people to build tiny homes. And the idea is that these tiny homes would rent for much less than a traditional apartment or a little house or something like that. That would be on its own, or a duplex or a multifamily, anything like that. So that's exciting, right? I'm excited for this for so many reasons. I do believe that it will allow for more affordable housing. Will allow rent prices to stabilize, which I think is really important. It will allow, ideally, for homeowners to be able to rent out these tiny homes. Now, I haven't heard yet, and it's mentioned in this article that let me actually show you guys this article, but I'm also reading it to you as we do this, right? It is mentioned that one of the cities that Norman spoke to or talked to about the tiny home situation says that they're not allowing, there we go. They're not allowing Airbnbs, short-term rentals in these tiny homes. Now, I do believe we could have an amazing discussion about the issue surrounding this. In Norman, we have quite a few short-term rentals, mostly because of football, but there are a lot of other reasons too. We're just a pretty big city. So that's one thing that we have to take into consideration. So there are restrictions for these ADUs. One of them is that it can't be taller than the original house. So if you have a two-story, I mean, that would be cool, I guess. You can have a two-story, maybe. I've seen them. I've seen two-story ADUs. So that's really interesting. And it can't be more than 650 square feet, and it cannot be a mobile home. So I'm really interested because, they haven't put restrictions out for this yet. I'm really interested to hear the process on this and what they're considering a tiny house, like how this should be constructed. Also, homeowner associations, HOAs, can restrict these from being built as well. So there is opportunities for homeowner associations to amend their documents if possible. And that all depends on who is running the HOA and the process for amending their documents. So we have to keep that in mind. So the mayor said that any property zoned single family, which is most properties in Norman that are residential, would be eligible to add these homes to their property. And during the meeting, a lot of people got up and said that they supported the measure, but then a lot of pushback was there for short-term rentals. Um, I see both sides of this. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on if they should be short-term rentals or not. As I said, these are the first that are allowed in Norman, and I can't wait to have a longer video for you guys once a little bit more information is circulated about the use of the tiny homes. One thing I thought was interesting, and I think this was in the Norman transcript article from last year, is that Lawrence, Kansas, which is where one of the public Kansas universities is. I don't know which one it is, but they all started allowing ADUs, and over the course of 5 years, they only, because you have to go through the permitting process, but they only got like 15 applications for people to put in ADUs, and I just thought that was insane because, I'm already thinking of who can add them and how I'm going to talk to my clients about this and how it will increase their home value, and also different ways that you can finance it, because there are going to be different ways to finance that. just food for thought. I cannot wait to share more with you about that. That's and will it increase your home's value? I mean, yes, I would say, depending on what you can use it for. So we'll get into that at a later time. So make sure to drop your questions about that. I can't wait to hear them. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the realtor lawsuit settlement. I don't know. I've talked to a few people about this already, and I don't know who all has heard about it. If you don't keep up with the news, you usually don't hear about it, but if you do, then you might have seen it everywhere. It totally depends. So, essentially, and I'm going to explain this to the best of my ability for you to understand. I explain this to my clients when I meet with them. So, whenever I meet with a new client, someone who is wanting to buy a home or sell a home, then I talk through how I get paid. And if it's a listing, then I talk through how much I charge and how much I intend to compensate the person who brings the buyer or the buyer's agent. And there's a lot of opinions out there about how we get paid, right? And there's a lot of opinions out there on how much we get paid as real estate agents and who should be doing the paying. So I just want to give you an idea of what's going on with this. We don't know how this is going to affect anyone yet because it hasn't happened. The judge hasn't even approved this settlement. Basically, this was like a class action suit and it was in courts for a long time, blah, blah, blah. And here we are, right? Okay, so first thing, I'm using this article, which is in the Oklahoman, which is one of my favorite news sources. It's the Oklahoma City newspaper. So this says that commissions are expected to be, well, let's read this first part. Homebuyers prepare to bargain with your realtor, not just the seller of the house you want. And get ready to negotiate an agreement before you're even shown a house. Starting in July, if a court approves, that will determine what a buyer's realtor makes on commission. Whenever I meet with a buyer, even now, for years, I've done this. I sit them down and explain to them what I do and how I'm going to get paid because it's always a question. It's a huge question that people ask me. So this is saying that this is going to be changing, which for me, I guess it's really not because I've always charged the same amount and I always get that in writing with the buyers that I work with. So it says that commissions are expected to be less than the usual 5 to 6% split between the sides in a transaction. It could take a little pressure off rising home prices, although demand drives that. I've heard this argued several times that somehow commissions are going to affect home prices. And I am not really sure where this information is coming from. What drives home prices is demand in general. There's usually no commissions involved. The appraiser also does not take this into consideration when they are pricing a home, how much commission a realtor makes. They never know. They never ask us. Like they don't have our listing agreements, they don't have our buyer agreements, nothing. So please know that. And also know that in Oklahoma, we have a persistently low supply of homes for sale. This is super common. Okay. So this says that buyer's agents no longer automatically get paid by seller's agents and must now get the buyer to sign a buyer representation agreement. A buyer brokerage is what I call this. No more automatic compensation sharing between the sides. I got to move my legs, you guys, between the sides in a transaction. You hear my rolly chair. There was automatic sharing, I guess, of how much a listing agent was going to pay a buyer's agent. I always told my seller how much I was going to pay the buyer's agent. This has always been negotiable, and it usually serves the seller well to be like competitive on how much they're offering the buyer's agent. Ultimately, the question that I pose and that me and my other realtor friends have been talking about is who pays the realtors in general, because to us, it's always the buyer who's paying the entire commission, right? Because they're paying it in the entire loan. And it looks like up front, of course, that the seller is paying that because they have to pay out of their proceeds. Is it just a wash? Is it not? Like, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on that. And also think about how much time goes into making these kinds of transactions work for the consumer themselves. Okay. So at this point in this article, they're talking about um, if this is going to cause home prices to drop. This guy explains it really well. Home prices are fluid, just like any commodity. If the settlement has any impact on the price of homes, it will only be momentary as the free market organically corrects itself. We see this with the housing market all the time, no matter what commissions are being offered. Inventory remains the number one problem that we face here in Oklahoma, and inflation is the number two problem, or the cost of things. These two combined create the affordability issues that we see here in Oklahoma. So keep that in mind. And then one thing that he talks about in this article that I want to definitely bring to your attention, because I've seen it all over the news and YouTube, which I mostly watch YouTube and not the news or TikTok. But so this is about the president. And guys, I don't talk about politics. This to me though was not about politics. It's about bringing clarity to how realtors get paid and giving you the information that you need to make a decision about what you want to do. So President Biden did misstate how realtors get paid. He misstated the commission issue. And I'm not sure why he misstated this because it's pretty simple. But here we are. Okay. So Biden said that, where is it? Oh my gosh, I lost it on my thing. And okay. But basically he says that now home sellers and the public at large can negotiate commissions. Commissions have always been negotiable. Always been negotiable. And I think this is one of the biggest things that I'm seeing on these national news sources is them saying that, like, oh, the 6% commission is gone. In most states, it's gone already. There hasn't ever been 6% commission. So make sure you go look up these types of articles in your specific area to understand what's really going on. So down here, it was corrected. Oh, here's what Biden said. Here was his quote. Last week, the National Association of Realtors agreed for the first time that Americans can negotiate lower commissions when they buy or sell a home, when that has literally always been the case. So then Kevin Sears, the NAR president, doesn't matter if you like him or not. I'm gonna read what he said. The president unfortunately repeated incorrect claims, which he did, that the recent announcement settlement agreement allows Americans to negotiate commissions for the first time, which is not true. Real estate agent commissions are driven by the market and are not the cause of the affordability crisis. They're definitely not the cause of the affordability crisis. There are a lot of causes, and we're not going to get into it right now. If you want to, please go ahead and ask your questions, and we will answer them. You can send me an email, or we can chat it out, or we can have a live discussion here, whatever you need to do. But I believe, and many other people believe, that is not the cause of the affordability crisis here in the US. So that's my 2 cents right now on the NAR settlement. If you don't know anything about it, go do some research and make sure you're looking at not just one type of news source. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Now we're going to move on to sort of market update stuff. So these two things, the reason I brought up the accessory dwelling units and also this information about the realtor lawsuit settlement is because it's both of these things might influence home prices here in Norman. So we need to know about them. Sweet. Oh, super thirsty, you guys. It's because I had bacon on my salad for dinner like 10 minutes ago. So that makes sense. Okay, here we go. I am moving on to, I was showing you that on Safari, and now I'm moving on to Google Chrome because it's easier to present on because my computer hates me. Info Sparks. These are the numbers for my MLS, and this is what we're going to go over so that you can understand where we stand here in Oklahoma in terms of house prices and this first quarter. So I'm going to run through some of these numbers for the overall market, and then we're going to talk about some different areas like Norman, Moore, Edmond, and Choctaw. And I'll explain why I want to go over those specific areas as we hit them. Okay. So here's what we've got. And I'm going to show you affordability and ranges of home size as well. And I should probably, where is that? Here, I want this over here. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to open up the MLS because I want to show you guys or talk to you about what is available. Okay. Here we go. Have my ponytail up today and it's like hitting my ears, which makes me feel like I have long hair for the first time in a decade, which I do. So the information I have on the screen right now, this is a fun graph, takes you back to some high school graph reading classes, whatever those were, social studies, I think. Social studies. Yeah. Anyway, the first thing I have up here is the entire MLS. So that's every home that has been listed and sold in the MLS. And this is over the past 3 years. So the first thing I have up here is median sales price. We see these kind of jumps mostly because of different seasons, right? So the high jump that we see before we get to today was from a year ago, not a year, more than a year. No, 6 months ago. And that's saying that the median home price here in the Oklahoma City metro was $260,000. And today, or for March, which ended 2 days ago, our median sales price here in the Oklahoma City metro, all of our MLS, and this is literally everywhere, is $250,000. So I use the median because it's a better indicator of what's going on in the market. If we go over to the average, we're looking at $300,000 or $294,000. To move my feet off my little chair thing because they're getting really tired and falling asleep. Okay, so that's a really good piece of information. Why do we want to know this piece of information? To kind of get an understanding of what the average price is across the metro, where we can see higher competition, usually below the $250,000 mark, you're going to see higher competition. Above it, you'll probably see less. And that makes sense because it's more expensive. Cool. And it depends on many other things, but we won't get into that. So next over here is new listings. In the winter, we do have usually fewer new listings. And in the spring, summer, and fall, we usually have more new listings. So in December of 2023, we had 1,700 new listings. And in March, which was last month, we had 3,000. So almost double. What does that mean for buyers? It means that there are more houses out there for you to purchase. That's what that means. And we're going to go into some different communities here in a second. And then yes, Elisa says that she loves buying in January. Yes, buying in January is a really good idea. Also, listing your home in January is a really good idea. You usually get less showings, but more interested or serious buyers. So that's what we consistently see throughout the market. Thank you, Elisa, and it's good to see you. Okay, so that's new listings. Home for sale. So we have in January it was 5,000 and right now it's 5,500. Guys, there's not enough homes for sale. If you need to sell your house, call me. Like let's do it. Let's get your home on the market because we don't have enough. I am not even close to seeing um what we were seeing in 2017. Like not even close. So if you need to sell your home, let's get after it. And Elisa says that it's stressful selling in December because of the holidays. Yeah, I guess. Or you could look at it the other way and like, oh, selling during the holidays, I don't have to decorate at all. Or maybe your house looks really cute and you're really good at decorating for Christmas. I don't know. But I do know that you're going to have more serious buyers oftentimes in December. So, you know. And Elisa says now is a great time to sell. It is, it can be, partly because, and I tell my people who call me, like my clients, that in Oklahoma, we do sort of hibernate in the winter. I notice people doing that. They don't want to do anything if it's too cold. And so then they like come out of hiding, right? in in March. I always say that St. Patrick's Day is go time. Like that's when people start getting out, looking at houses, selling their houses, etc. So that's why we see these jumps in homes for sale. So in pending sales, we saw a massive jump in pendings. So we went from 1,400 pendings. That means homes that are under contract, ready to hit the closing table, all the way up to now we have 2,500. So that's 1,000 more homes that are pending in March versus December. And that's, yeah, it makes a big difference for sure. Oh, goodness. Okay, closed sales. So it's like half. It's half the amount of homes. So this is August 2022. We had 2,700 closed sales. And in March of 2024, we have 1,800. It is a huge difference. 1,000 less homes in our market. Really big deal. It's a question that I'm getting a lot. Oh, super thirsty, you guys. Super thirsty about the market. So, one thing you have to keep in mind is that in August of 2022, we were starting to turn down at that point, like because interest rates were starting to go up. So they were hitting the fours at that point, the 4%, which would be amazing if we were at that right now. But if we were at that right now, if we were at 4% for interest rates for homes, then home prices would skyrocket. It doesn't matter how much you're paying your realtor. It doesn't matter about anything else. Affordability is the number one indicator for affordability is going to be the interest rate because that drives monthly payment. Like you cannot get around that argument. That is 100% what it is. And as a realtor, I know that because I watch people do it and I talk them through it all the time. So 1,000 more homes closed August 2022 than March of 2024. It's a lot. It's a lot. And then our lowest point was down here in January 2023, and there were 1,200 closed homes. So that is a huge difference from that August time period. So that to me is the big the downturn. Like it's hard to see while you're in it, but whenever you look at it like this, when you're going from 2,700 sold homes and then 4 months later you're at 1,200, that's a really big difference in a market like ours. So that is the downturn that we saw. Cool. Days on market. I was explaining this recently. We went from 30 days on market in February all the way down to 22 in March. What does this mean? It means that more buyers are coming out to purchase houses. as what that means. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about selling. It's a very fast moving market, guys. It's nothing like we were seeing in 2021, but it is very fast. Month supply. This is going to be about the same. It's about 2.8, 2.5 to 2.8 months on for inventory. What that means is if nothing else went on the market today, it would take 2.8 months to sell everything that is listed today. And then percent of list price is 100%. Price your homes correctly. If you're going to sell your house, you got to price it correctly. That's what gets your home sold. That's what gets it sold. Pricing it correctly. And price per square foot, we're looking at $153 a square foot. It's much higher here in Norman. And then we have the I'll talk about shows per pending really quick. I use this number a lot to talk about whenever a house needs a price reduction because if we're getting a median 8 showings per house and we have 14 showings and no offer, then we probably need to lower the price. The buyers aren't seeing the value there. So that's what I see there. And a lot of times that's why I ask realtors how many showings they've had as well. Because at a certain extent, even if a realtor or a real estate agent doesn't say this to their seller, the seller kind of understands that this is a problem, right? Yeah. And we always say that days on market is the enemy of value. So the longer a house sits on the market, the less value the buyer sees. So yay. It's kind of a bummer, but Okay, so now let's go to Norman. I'm not going to bring them up at the same time because it doesn't make sense whenever you look at them. So median sales price here in Norman is $284,000. And in February, it was $265,000. It's harder to look at this in these smaller towns. Like Norman's pretty big at 128,000 people. But I'm kind of looking at the average over this time period. And I usually like $270,000 is the average that we're seeing. Okay. And then the amount of new listings. So we have quite a few new listings here in Norman. So in February, we were at 151 new listings. And then in March there, we saw 213 new listings. So that means that there are more properties out there for buyers to buy, and the properties that are on the market have more competition than they did the month prior. And interest rates today went up apparently. So that's fun. But also you have options for buying that interest rate down. And we are expecting interest rates to go down in the third quarter. Maybe. Who knows? But that's the word on the street. It's the word on the street, you guys. So in Norman in February, there was 275 homes for sale. And in March, there were 320 homes for sale. That's a pretty big jump in the amount of homes for sale in our market. And you can see the biggest jump happening here in March 2022, there were 98. And then in June of 2022, there were 262. You can kind of see where because some of those homes took a little while to sell. So you can see a little bit of where this shift happened in our market in 2022, 2023. So the number of pending sales, we went from 86 in Norman, which is not very many, in December of 2023. And then in March, there were 151. So almost double. So that means that Norman was really sitting at the bottom of the market in December. And people just weren't buying houses. I think they were waiting for interest rates to go down, and that just did not happen. And I'm not sure when it's going to, but if you need a house, then you should buy a house because the best time to buy a house was 20 years ago or today. Because you're riding appreciation and not interest rate, but you also have to afford it. And so I get that too. There's so many factors that come into this, and you have to think about what's best for you and what's best for your family. I totally understand that. Closed sales in Norman, 80 in January, 123 in March. That means more homes came on the market and more buyers came out to purchase them. Days on market. This is a big indicator for Norman. So in February, we're at 21 median days on market. And in March, we're at 14. Way more buyers out there looking. Sellers who are pricing things correctly. Like 14 days is nothing. That is a very fast moving market. And I know it doesn't feel fast because in 2022 early spring, we were sitting on the market for 2 days. So 14 days is a lot when you when you compare it to 2. But the facts are that, things are selling pretty quickly. Let me switch over to average here and see what that is. Yeah, average is 41, which is quite a bit higher, but that's going to be some of the houses that are priced in the luxury range. So, if you're buying a luxury house, now is the time. Like the amounts that we can get in terms of and I'm talking as a buyer's agent right now, the amounts that we can get in terms of buying down the rate to make it more affordable for you, or getting a 3-2-1 buy down or a 2-1 buy down. If you want to know what that means, please send me an email and I will get that information over to you. My email is listed in the show notes, and I also have it up on the screen right now for you. So send me an email if you need that information for the buy downs and how that can make it more affordable over time, or just buying down in general, which is what I think is better for people. But also, I'm not a lender. I am not a lender. So for that information, we have to look at other people. Okay. Month supply. I kind of explained this before. 2.1 in Norman all the way up to 2.4. Norman moves at a very fast clip for a market. And then shows to pending in Norman is about the same as it is in the rest of the metro, meaning about 8 shows to get a house under contract. This, to me, as a listing agent, is a very important source of information to know how many showings I need to get in order to sell a house. Okay, so that's Norman. Next, I want to move on to Moore, which is going to look really similar. Let me go back to Norman really quick because I want to show you one thing, or talk about one thing. So I want to show you the average price point for a 2,000 square foot house all the way up to a 2,500 square foot house. So the sales price for a 2,000 to 2,500 square foot house in Norman, the median price is $381,000. $381,000. A lot of people that I talk to end up wanting a 2,000 square foot house. Understand that you're going to be paying around $400,000 for that in Norman. If you want a 1,500 square foot house or less, you're going to be paying, in March it was 170,000, but usually about 186,000, maybe more, depending on how new you want that house to be. This is very important information. So affordability and house sizes, and this is where inventory issues tend to come into play. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move on to Moore really quick before I move on to Edmond. So median sales price in Moore is at 190,000. Moore is affordable. And yes, do they have tornadoes? This is the question that I get all the time. Yes, of course they have tornadoes. We have tornadoes too. And then tornadoes in Oklahoma City and in El Reno and in Edmond. I'm sorry, you're just not going to get away from them. We live in Oklahoma. This is how it works. But I also saw they had tornadoes in Kentucky last night. I'm not saying we're better or worse. I'm saying that we can't get away from some of this weather stuff, right? Do some research. See what you think. I think Moore is a pretty awesome town. It's more of a sleeper community. It's very quiet, etc. So anyway, median sales price in Moore in March last month, 190,000. In January, it was 181,000. So extremely affordable, more is more affordable than Norman. There are quite a few new listings and more. So we went from 45 in February of 24 to 43 in March of 24. Oops, just kidding. You guys, you didn't catch me on that, but it's pretty close still. I had the prices wrong. That was 1,500 square feet or less. So the median sales price and more is 232,000, which is still pretty dang good. And then the new listings, we're looking at 110 new listings and more. And a lot of those are going to be under 1,500 square feet, which means they're going to be under $200,000. And people call me all the time and say, well, I don't want to live in more because of tornadoes. And if you're on the phone with me, you don't see my face, which is like this on the other side, because I think you could like it. You might not. It's totally up to you. But I don't think that it's worth ruling out whenever you look at the facts that like Oklahoma City actually has the most tornadoes of anywhere in the entire state. So keep that in mind. Okay. Rule it out for other reasons, not just tornadoes. Okay. Homes for sale in more 120. Last month, January was 103. We're seeing a lot more homes come on the market because it's spring and this is what we do. Closed sales in March, 74. In January, it was only at 51. So closed sales are really heading up there, you guys. That means that people are out there buying houses. If you think that no one's buying houses because rates are at 7%, like this is the statistics that I have to show you that people are buying houses. So if you need to sell a house, this is the time to do it because the average days on market in Moore is 45, which is really fast moving market, and the median is only 12. It's only 12. So people are buying houses, people are selling houses. The market just looks different than it did 2 years ago. And shows depending and more are going to be a little bit higher, so about 10 showings to get a house sold, down from 12. So something to also keep in mind. I'm not really sure why this might be. I'm like trying to like figure out in my head, like maybe investors. Do see a lot of investors and more, so maybe that's what's going on. But there's also more homes that are more affordable that are available, but also sometimes that people living or wanting to live in more are also thinking like, oh, I could live in Oklahoma City because they're really close to each other. So that's another reason why there might be more showings on these properties. Oh, cheers, you guys. Thirsty. I usually put these like drops of water or drops of magnesium in my water, and I didn't. And I can taste that it's not there, which is unfortunate because I love that stuff. Okay, next I'm moving on to Edmond. And Edmond is always a little bit funky. And I'm going to definitely show you the prices for like different sizes of house for Edmond. So for Edmond, the median house price is $350,000. It is a lot higher than anywhere else. A lot higher. That is how it works there. The average is going to be $418,000. We had a lot of new listings in Edmond, 434. And the number of homes for sale, and it's really been, that's so interesting that in November they had 677. And there's a lot of new builds in Edmond. That might be what's going on with that number, but 628 homes for sale in March. So closed sales, this is going to be, I mean, it's really hitting the peaks in the summertime in Edmond. So 384 last May and 264. So 100 less last month than last May. Days on market, we are looking at 14 for the median. Very fast moving market, just like Norman. And then the average being only at 40, which I thought that would be higher. So that really surprises me. So what I want to show you is the sales price of a 1,500 square foot home or less in Edmond. So in December, that was $226,000. That's the average sales price, but I want to look at median. So that was $238,000. It's a very small house in Edmond, and there's not very many of them. And then in February, it was $222,000 for 1,500 square feet or less, and then $212,000 for March. Keep that in mind as you're looking at Edmond. It is a very different price range than, say, Moore. Okay. For 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, the average or the median sales price for a 1,500 to 2,000 square foot house in Edmond, 1,500 square, or sorry, $300,000. $300,000. These are houses that are under 2,000 square feet. And then $295,000 for March. These are houses that are under 2,000 square feet. Keep that in mind, guys, because it's definitely a different price range in Edmond. And then for 2,000 to 2,500 square feet, we are looking at 355,000 for the average, median for January, and then the same for March. So $355,000 for 2,000 to 2,500 square feet. Perfect. Month supply in Edmond, around 2.2, and that's down from 2.8 from December. Okay. Shows depending. I just want to see it because I haven't looked at it in a while. So 8, down from 12. Okay. So it's going to be 8 across the board in the market. So if you do have your house listed on the market and you need to bring that number down, count up how many showings you've had and see if you need a price reduction. And also know that like we expect these numbers to go up in the summer, partly because there are more buyers, but there's also more buyers out there looking who aren't necessarily qualified to purchase a home. Yep, that happens. Cheers, guys. Oh, only water today. Only water. Next, I said that I was going to go over Choctaw. Now, why would I go over Choctaw? Well, I think it's a really good opportunity for people to live in the country and, of course, to live very close into Oklahoma City. I work in Choctaw a lot. I see a lot of beautiful home builds, and I always like watching an emerging market like this. So here we go. The sales price in Choctaw, $312,000. A lot of these homes, I mean, there's some that are on city lots, but even the city lots, your house isn't going to be as close as other houses in other areas because they're just a little bit bigger. So $312,000. And that is down from $380,000, but that's because of the amount of homes for sale. So 84 homes for sale, 65 homes for sale in December, 77 homes for sale in January, 84 homes for sale in February, and then 67 homes for sale in March. Don't know what happened there. There was a big drop in the amount of homes for sale. So that probably means that a bunch of stuff went pending. Let me see. Yes, it did. So 21 homes pending in February, up to 44 in March. That is exactly what happened. Days on market in Choctaw. This is average. So went from 49 to 53, then down to 35. If you don't know, Choctaw is very close to Tinker Air Force Base, and a lot of people who work at Tinker tend to live in Choctaw. And then the median days on market for Choctaw is right now at 27, and that is down from 47. So the market's just moving more. I don't know what happened. It could be that people are choosing to live there more. It could be that some people got their orders to go to Tinker Air Force Base. It could be that Tinker started hiring more. Like there are so many reasons that people are moving out there. But I think one of the biggest reasons is that people want space and they want a highly rated school district. And Choctaw has both of those. Month supply in Choctaw, 3.2 down to 2.5. That's interesting. Like I expected their inventory to be lower, but it's higher. Huh. I'll have to think about that one. And then there's shows depending, which I always look at this one, is 10 right now. So 10 showings to put a house under contract in Choctaw. And a lot of the homes in Choctaw are going to be bigger, so 2,000 to 2,500 square feet. And then you're looking at a sales price of $385,000. 2,500 or more, and you're looking at a sales price of $379,000. That's interesting. That's gone down a lot. It's the affordability factor with the interest rates for sure. That's what's happening here. Fascinating. Fascinating, guys. Well, if you have any more questions about the housing market, specifically what you can get, like how much house you can get for a specific amount of money, you can send me an email or give me a call. I have all of my information in the show notes, and I will be talking to you next week. So, yeah, have a great week. Bye.